Good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Karaoke Kyolu.
I'm Ayomakine. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
And good morning from Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Okay, so welcome back. Well, there you go. Those restrictions have been eased to some extent. Eased because, much as interstate travel is still prohibited, but then easing of the lockdown, larger parts of it will now depend on the states. So at the federal level, they did announce that, well, yes, Kano, they can relax now. So that's why I see reports about them being excited on that. And then the ban on gatherings more than 20 is still prohibited. But they say churches, mosques, places of worship, yeah, I think the states will now determine what happens, how do they want to proceed with all of those. The restaurants outside those hotels can open only for takeaways. But goodness, well, some people have been eating in those restaurants, actually. So we don't know. Lagos says, look, we're going to get this list, this guideline, such that if people need to open at a certain time, well, you need to adhere to these guidelines. Now, will they go ahead and we'll just wait to see what happens before Lagos reopens the economy based on those conditional clauses. So, some of the highlights there.
And when you hear words like cautious, advance, subject to review, you realize that, yes, you've been promoted, but it's on trial. Because when you hear subject to review, maybe, things might actually go back to the way it was. So yes, we've been promoted to the next phase as we use, but this is on trial. So we have to really do well in this class for us to stay in this class and maybe move on to the next class. But the curfew, again, is one of the major things that people are talking about, the fact that it has been reduced now. It's 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. But, for a lot of people, they don't seem to understand the role of a curfew in trying to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Maybe that's why you see a lot of people, even on the roads, when you have curfews, because in their mind they're wondering, it doesn't change much anyway. But then you talk about the flights, domestic flights, definitely. That has been a major issue, especially when you hear governors, a certain governor of Cross River State actually saying that, well, let's have domestic flights back. And we hear that June 21, just maybe, domestic flights might resume. But you see a breakdown of some of the, new guidelines for this second
Look at that
phase.
first. Yeah. How do you manage access to markets and locations of economic
There are
activities?
different kinds of markets. The supermarket is a market. Maybe
Super? How many super is this?
It's a market. It's just a super one.
Well, you don't go to start super place to get the basics for some people.
Maybe what that first one is saying essentially is, look, we all, I think that has just been an ongoing convo.
Yeah.
We all need to take responsibility. Well, the markets are perhaps doing their own bit as well. But, if you value your own life, you want to protect yourself first of all.
But one thing that this raises is that, look, we've seen the challenge we've got with data. Schools will remain closed, yes. Nationwide curfew between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. now.
10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
I think maybe that second one on this slide, works for some of us who have to come to work very early, who have been victims of this lockdown until 6 a.m. for a long time. Of course, we'll complain about that. But that first one, schools remain closed. Maybe just physical schools, because somehow some schools are trying to ensure that the school calendar is not distorted. I'm sure that the federal government is also concerned about the school calendar, But the school calendar runs from September to July or thereabout.
Which is, I was speaking to a parent who said, well, we've already started spending time at home. Don't now come back and tell us to pay for the full term.
Exactly.
So we'll just wait till this term ends, and then we can all start afresh.
Another school of thought would be, hey, why don't we just have a January to December or January to September, school calendar? And
then promote everybody. So, even though this is...
But, going back to that, your analogy about schools all the time, we are promoted on trial. I heard that the last time I was in secondary school.
But, there are basic things, really. The lessons we've learned about our challenges, what are we doing about them? We've seen abilities to gather data and target individuals with either palliative measures or economic stimulus measures, whatever it is. Can we achieve it? If we couldn't now, What are we doing to ensure we have that credible basis upon which we can plan and do some of these things? Importance of data. The healthcare system, they've talked about the challenges. Having identified that, what are we doing about all of those things? Where will the bill, the emergency stimulus bill from the House of Reps, how will it end up? Will the Senate concur? They've started to concur a number of times now. What's going on with that? Do they really mean? Are they well intended for the people? So these are some of the issues. But the doctors themselves, the medical practitioners who are, of course, on the front lines, who are handling some of these things, how do they relate to some of these measures to ensure that, look, all things go well? Well, let's get to Dr. Aliyu Sokomba, who is the President, National Association of Resident Doctors. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. All of these restrictions that have been announced, the measures put in place, how it will be internalized by states. What's the thinking about doctors, for instance? How do they relate with this?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. Well, so far, we, as doctors and healthcare providers handling the cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, have continued to contend with the reality. And as the cases continue to rise and the testing for these cases continue to increase from the various stakeholders putting more effort into containing the disease, we think several measures that are currently in place are measures in the right direction, and very soon we are hoping that this disease will be contained.
Do you see the impact of all of this in terms of the treatments, the number of people that need to be attended to, the traffic, really, of patients?
Yes. Before now, we were slow at handling these situations, but with the improved efforts from government officials, we are optimistic that we are in the right direction, and this will be curtailed in the shortest possible time.
Okay, so, yeah.
So now, with all of these conversations that have been going on, I mean, we know that to a large extent your association has been complaining about whether or not the federal government has been paying enough attention to the things that you need to get the job done in the fight against COVID-19. How compliant would you say government has been with your association or your members at the federal and state levels in that?
Well, unfortunately, the Association of Resident Doctors just issued a 14 days ultimatum to the federal government to address some of our plights and concern, failure of which the association shall be proceeding on a total national and indefinite industrial action from 15th of June this year. And this is in response to the government insensitivity to some of our plights and concern. To start with,
hello, Dr. Sokomba, just one moment. That's not the question I'm asking yet. We're going to go to that one. But I'm saying, since the last time you came here, you've raised some issues about the provision of personal protective equipment. Are you saying that there has been no communication about that with you, with your association, with your members between then and now?
That's basically what I'm saying, that the situation has not improved. It has worsened instead, and that has informed our decision to take further action on it.
I don't understand. You're saying that even after the conversations you began, according to you, you said the federal government was talking with you about provision of these equipment. Are you saying that nothing has happened over time?
Well, over time, some treatment centers received the personal protective equipment they needed to work with. But my concern is not just for treatment center. I'm concerned about all the hospitals in Nigeria, because as I have continued to mention, that these COVID-19 patients do not have it written on their forehead that they are COVID-19. And so all patients are considered potential COVID-19 cases until proven otherwise. And until these personal protective equipment are available in all our hospitals, we'll continue to clamor for their availability. And up to this moment, that is not the case. We still don't have this personal protective equipment in most of our hospitals in Nigeria. They are readily available in treatment centers, but not in the various hospitals where patients are attended to in Nigeria.
Are you talking about hospitals that are under the federal government or hospitals under the state governments?
I am talking about all the hospitals, both in federal government and state government.
We also have there is this information out there on the streets that some of your members had conversations with a government in the southwest, Ogun State in particular, and that the Ogun State government had spoken with them and said, you know what, we're going to increase your hazard allowances between 200 and 300% of what they were currently having, yet they still decided to go on a 3-day warning strike. Are you aware of that, and what was it about?
Thank you very much. The governor of Ogun State has not been sincere with his claim, and I must say categorically that there has not been any understanding between the governor of Ogun State and the resident doctors in the states. There has been several clamor by the doctors in OOUTH teaching hospital with regards to their welfare and their well-being in that hospital, and we have not been informed. There has not been any memorandum of understanding signed contrary to the claim by the governor. I don't know if he has plans of getting that done soonest, but up to this moment, that has not been done.
Has there been any conversation between your members? Have there been any conversation between your members and the Ogun State government?
Yes, there has been several engagements, but no memorandum of understanding was signed, and that was what our members were clamoring for, so that whatever agreements that is reached will be legally binding and will be executed. But that has not been done up to this moment.
Right. So let's talk about the 14-day ultimatum which you have given. And you say that if your demands are not met, then you will proceed on a strike. A lot of people are handling that differently, especially now that we're facing a pandemic and we're trying to flatten that curve and ensure it dips. And we know the role that your members play in ensuring that we achieve success in that area. You have talked about equipping, hospitals with PPEs. What are the demands that you bring into the table?
Well, basically, we are asking that some injustice that are meted against our members be addressed. I want to start by informing you that sometimes in 2017, the National Assembly enacted the Medical Residency Training Act to govern residency training in Nigeria. Since 2017 up till 2019, that act was never implemented. We raised some concern which led to the intervention of the Right Honorable Speaker, and we were promised that from 2020 January, that Medical Residency Training Act will be implemented. And just as 2020 came up, the punitive part of the Medical Residency Training Act that stipulates that anybody that is unable to finish their program in good time should be exited, that was implemented. And because it was implemented in line with the provisions of the Act, we had no objection to that. We only clamored that the funding of the program should also be commenced so that we'll have the full implementation of the Medical Residency Training Act. As if that was not bad enough, the Chief Medical Director of Jos University Teaching Hospital proceeded to disengage resident doctors, this time around without recourse to the provisions of the Medical Residency Training Act. We brought that to the attention of the Board of Management of the Jos University Teaching Hospital as well as the Supervising Ministry. 3 months after those residents were lawlessly, illegitimately disengaged, up to this moment, nothing has happened. Of the 26 resident doctors that were sacked, only 2 resident doctors actually deserve to be sacked based on the provisions of the law. And we have stated categorically that we have nothing against people being asked to leave the program as long as it is done in line with the provisions of the law. And we continue to wonder how the National Assembly will go through all the trouble of enacting a law. The president of the country will go through the trouble of signing it into an act for one chief medical director to shun and disregard. The chief medical director has disregarded the act of the Parliament of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we consider it the height of impunity, the height of administrative rascality, and we are calling that the chief medical director rescind on his decision to illegitimately disregard doctors without recourse to the Medical Residency Training Act. Secondly, the government of the day had on several occasions announced to the world their decision to implement and review the hazard allowance of healthcare workers. I am sure you are quite aware that on several occasions, including the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has announced the review of the hazard allowance, as well as the plan to pay the inducement allowance for COVID-19. Up to this moment that we speak, that has not seen the light of the day, and we have it on good authority that the government have no plan of seeing to the end of that agreement they willingly and freely reached with union leaders. If that agreement was reached freely, we believe upon their honor, they should see to the implementation of that agreement that was reached with us.
Just hang on a minute. About that, the Jos University Teaching Hospital matter, we got some preliminary word from the medical director who says that is not the situation. But we'll try and get to hear from him directly to hear what really happened, because the views he expressed at the time were different from what you're saying. He was saying some of them have finished their project and they were on their way out, so he doesn't understand some of this. But until we get to hear from him, you know, in terms of what really transpired, maybe we can revisit that matter. But part of your demand, which was circulated, reported in the media, is that you were asking that security agencies stop harassing including doctors at that time. But we also do remember that the NMA, for instance, in Lagos, they did declare a strike, and then they called it off because the Lagos State government and the police had spoken to all of those. So haven't you been spoken to by security agencies at the moment on that matter?
The harassment of healthcare workers has continued to be a challenge. Not all this harassment gets to be reported to the media. And you are quite aware that on 2 occasions, doctors in Lagos State were harassed. Doctors were harassed in Akwa Ibom State. Doctors were harassed here in Abuja. Doctors' harassment has continued to be a challenge for us. Yeah. And in most cases, this harassment don't get to the media. And so we are calling on the security agencies to desist from harassing these healthcare workers.
Dr. Sokorba, I understand that point. In addition, what I'm asking is, the police themselves put up a statement that even the NMA put up a statement that they had been reached out to by the Nigerian police at that time, because this, correct me if I'm wrong, it came up stronger during the time of the lockdown, where even those on essential services, including doctors, were being harassed. Have you been spoken to? Do you have any communication from the police? Because the NMA had that they called off the strike.
Yes. The members of NMA that were harassed, incidentally, are also our members. So we have been communicated on that. But what we are saying is that the communication has not led to the complete stoppage of the harassment. So we are calling on the security agencies to completely desist from further harassment. Because it also has been reported of incidents where doctors were arrested and detained. So these are recurring incidents that we want to completely stop. Okay. And that's why we capture it as part of the demands in our communique. And we also captured the other aspects of state governments.
Just hold on a minute. About the PPEs that you requested, because clearly you're not on the same page with the NMA on that particular matter, since it's still part of your demands for a strike. What do you want with the PPEs? Are you asking government to provide to all hospitals, or what?
Well, basically, we shouldn't even be asking governments to ensure the availability of personal protective equipment in our hospitals. That should be something government does spontaneously. But because these personal protective equipment are not available, it has continued to expose our members to unnecessary risk. As I speak to you, 72 hours ago, I lost one of my member in person of Dr. Nasir Adam in Birni Kudu, again to COVID-19. So we are continuing to receive this news of the death of our members, most cases as a result of inadequacy of personal protective equipment in the various hospitals where they work. And this problem has continued to exist as a challenge, and we want this challenge addressed. We want personal protective equipment available in all hospitals where doctors see patients. That's
if the government
demand we want the government to attend to.
If the government
Again,
is to provide that, just hang on a minute. If you want the government to provide that in all the hospitals, remember that, number one, it's not all hospitals that are designated to treat COVID-19 cases. We understand that patients accidentally may present themselves in some of the hospitals for other matters and may have COVID. But what is the role then of hospital owners if their hospitals are not designated to treat COVID? Should government also be providing for them as well?
Well, I'm talking about government institutions. Government should be the owner of all institutions as governments. I'm talking about the state government institutions as well as the federal government institutions. I want them to, being the owners of this hospital, ensure that these personal protective equipment are available to all the hospitals, because as we are already contending with the community transmission of this disease, any patient that presents to any hospital is considered a COVID-19 patient until treated or until proven otherwise.
Okay. Yesterday, the Minister of Health did say that the Ministry of Labor is already in communication with NARD. Is that correct?
That is not correct. Unfortunately, we have not even been contacted, let alone a meeting being scheduled, let alone us having a meeting. So that is absolutely not correct. But I also want to state here that in addition to federal government addressing some of our challenges, we also have some issues with some state governments, like the state governor of Kaduna State, who slashed the salaries of doctors and other health care workers by 25%. And we consider this highly callous, and we want that reversed, because that was not done willingly and voluntarily. And I think it is criminal to take somebody's hard-earned money for whatever purpose. We want that reversed. We also have situations in Kogi State and Calabar, in Cross River State, that have refused to test their people, thereby exposing our doctors to unnecessary risk in these hospitals. And we also have situations in states like Gombe State, states like Abia State, Imo State, Ogun State, and Oyo State, for not
if you can hear me, Dr. Sokomba,
to terms and agreements they reach with healthcare workers.
Right. Now, I'd like to quickly take a quote from the Minister of Health, saying that as we speak, negotiation is going on with the Minister of Labor. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health is representing us there, and he went on to appeal to resident doctors not to, go on strike. But he also said that his office is always open, and you can call up or write to discuss these issues at the ministerial level before it gets to the public level, to use all avenues of collaboration. The question now is, have you reached out?
Thank you very much. On the issue of disengaged doctors of Jos University Teaching Hospital, we wrote 2 correspondences to the Federal Ministry of Health, of which a response was sent to us. And in the response, it was stated that the matter is being addressed by the Board of Management of Jos University Teaching Hospital, and we were warned in that correspondence to desist from further disturbing the ministry with issues like
that. That was actually supposed to be from the Ministry of Health.
Should be referred to.
Okay, well, he was actually referring to the Minister of Health
hospital
and the negotiation with Ministry of Labor, but we unfortunately have run out of time on this one. But we'll follow up on some of these cases with some of the relevant bodies that you've mentioned. We do thank you for coming on this morning, Dr. Aliyu Sokomba, President, Nigerian Association resident doctors. We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
What makes this visit unusual? If you have any memory with your cameras, you know that every now and then, from time to time, we have always been meeting. So why will you say it's unusual?
So what do you say about this?
So it's people like you that are speculating. Even now you are speculating. What is unusual that my brother and I have met, and many people I work with, there is no new face here. And yet for you it's unusual.
Okay. What's the?
Okay.
Tell us about the meeting.
You heard from him. There's nothing unusual about this meeting. We just finished celebrating the former national chairman in Benin, and we decided to come here and also visit with him. So there's nothing unusual.
So
We're celebrating our leaders.
What are your words to those who think you have been having a...
That they should stop thinking.
The business of taking and stuff.
I think you'll be there too. You like.
Well. It's politics, and that's why sometimes if you're not careful, you could be sucked in if you just don't get your calculations right. That was when this whole matter was, while it was still on, by the way, it wasn't in distant history. Well, this morning we've got Mr. Honorable Patrick Obayagban with us. He's a former member of the House of Reps and former Chief of Staff to former Governor Adams Oshiomhole of Edo State. He joins us, as you can see there. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. We just rolled some tape about the current governor and the immediate past governor. They were all smiles, and people thought, oh, things are looking hunky-dory. But what you see is not always the case. Now, there are those who believe that the way it's playing out in Edo State, in the APC, if things are not done right, if they're not sorted out properly, you just may play into the hands of the PDP. Do you share that same view, or what is your assessment of what is happening at the moment?
Well, good morning, Channel TV, and good morning, Nigerians. Let me start by saying that as a man who saw it all from the beginning, when both the national chairman of APC, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, and the governor of Edo State, Governor Godwin Obaseki, were political field assassins, or if you like, something like a political Siamese twins. I want to say for us, it's agonizing, for us it is painful, for us it is opprobrious, and it is a shame that the political ambience in Edo State just now has degenerated into an atomistic situation that is reeking of very, very deprecable ambience. But you want to ask the question, how did we get here? It is important for us to know how we got here, particularly even more important for His Excellency the Governor to know how we got here. I say this because I watched with a sense of maniacal bewilderment and bemusement yesterday on television when the governor of the state was quoted as saying, each system has better. That the reason why we got here is because the national chairman of the party has not taken correct advice. That is not true. That is a fallacy version on Petitio Principi. How did we get here? We got here by a combination of factors. One, shared political megalomania. Crass political aloofness on the part of the governor, quixotic puritanism, a sense of messianic tokenization. And if you like, a borderline of political and governance acts bordering on political Machiavellianism, bordering on political alienation of the political establishment, bordering on political socialism, bordering on political Mephistophelianism, and bordering on political Gabadoism. That is how we got to where we are today.
Honorable Obagbo, if you can hear us, we'd like you to just round off on how you think this whole thing started.
Well, I was saying that for those of us who saw it from day one, when I say those of us who saw it from day one, I'm talking particularly about the fact that our dynamic national chairman, Comrade Ali Oshobole, and the governor of Edo State were our political freedom charities and something like a political Siamese twins. And for us, therefore, the ambience we find ourselves just now in Edo State, a very cantankerous and very tempestuous one, is quite agonizing and mentally marketizing. But the truth of the matter is that we must be able to trace the forces origin of the political government we find ourselves just now. I say this because even up to yesterday, I watched very, very regrettably the governor of Edo State saying on television after he went to see Mr. President that one of the reasons why he thought we got to where we are today is because the national chairman has not taken the correct advice. I said, no to that. The truth of the matter is that we got here today by an admixture or a cockpit of very exchangeable factors. Why? We got here today by sheer political megalomania. We are here today by crass Olympian and aloofness. We are where we are today by a sense of brutality. We are here where we are today by a sense of messianic organization. And it is like a borderline of governance and political acts.
But
politics of Machiavellianism.
Yeah, but Honorable Obagbo, yesterday, not just yesterday, we heard the governor say that, look, this has got to do with management of the state resources. He's on tape. He said that several times, and he thought that that's the crux of the matter, as opposed to some of the reasons that you've highlighted.
That is far from being correct. And in any case, anytime the governor has gone to town or gone to Martin Olympus with this kind of very unsubstantiated accusation, he has been challenged to mention one politician or one member of the political class that has asked him to play political Robin Hoodism with the resources of Edo State. Has the governor been able to mention one person? No. He's not been able to mention anybody. Truth of the matter is that Mr. Governor came on board and decided to run things his own way. No consultation with the party structure, no consultation with the leadership of the party, no consultation with the followership of the party.
You know, but the other aspect of this is that for some who think that, look, this is going to upset and have wider implications, having seen the chairman of the party switch support to former PDP candidate. Now, those who are concerned say they know that the state is based on this tripod, the central, the north, and the south. Now, if the current governor is from the south, he's supposed to go for a second term. If he doesn't make it, if the governor, if Izeyamo gets the ticket, I beg your pardon, he becomes the governor, he's also from the south. So there's no way he won't be going for a second term, which will upset that tripod. And they think that that will be a bigger problem that the state will have to grapple with.
Not a problem at all. I mean, to assume that will mean that we are playing God, meaning that we already know that Izeyamo, Pastor Izeyamo will go for a second term if he becomes a governor. It is too early to make that assumptions.
Well, you clearly disagree that it's not just going to upset the apple cart, but in terms of how this is going to play out, will it be direct or indirect primaries? Because there are challenges about COVID-19 in the state and the restrictions, with INEC saying, if you want to hold direct primaries, we have to see your parties register. How do you see this playing out?
As a matter of fact, those who are calling for indirect primaries as the best open sesame out of the COVID-19 situation are just turning logic on its head. And why do I say so? If you look at Article 24A of our party constitution, I don't know if it's there with you, it says that further to Article 23 of this constitution, indirect primaries for the purpose of nominating a candidate shall be done at a designated venue for that purpose by an electoral college of delegates, democratically elected by members of the party from the various wards contained in the particular constituency at congresses. What this speaks to is the fact that for you to do indirect primaries in accordance with our party constitution, you will have to first of all elect delegates from the respective wards in Edo State. After you are through with the exercise of electing delegates from the respective wards, before they now combine with statutory delegates, and you get them to a designated venue for purposes of indirect primaries. So you can see, therefore, that from the clear provisions of our party constitution, indirect primaries is that modus operandi that is not COVID-19 friendly. It does not accord, it does not synchronize, and it is not in pari material with the protocols with the protocols of the Presidential Task Force and NCDC. So if we really want a pathway out of the quagmire and phantasmagoria of the COVID-19 pandemic, then direct primaries is the way to go.
When you look at the guidelines of the PTF, for example, saying, crowds beyond 20 should not gather outside a workplace, and even INEC had to bring out some form of, new guidelines for conducting election in the COVID-19 reality. So obviously, like COVID-19 has affected a lot of things. So seeing those guidelines, the fact that this is a new normal, do you still think that your constitution, which allows for people to gather in a place, will still be feasible?
That is why it is looking at this sui generis circumstance. It's why the NWC of my party has recommended direct primaries. Because when you nominate the candidate by direct primaries, you are decentralizing the process. You are taking the process back to the respective wards. And at the respective wards, in conformity and in compliance with the relevant protocols of the Presidential Task Force and the NCDC, then we are able to maximize the situation in a way and manner that we won't put the health of Edo State citizens in danger. But if you go by the route of indirect primaries, then what you are saying is that you are first of all asking for delegates to emerge through the laborious and self-contained and self-custodial political process. Thereafter, you now take them again to a designated venue. At that designated venue, you are centralizing the presence of delegates and thus exposing them to COVID-19. And that is why I think it's a fallacy bordering on post hoc, ego propter hoc, and petitio principii when the governor and the political minders are advocating for indirect primaries.
Okay. Even though many wonder how will direct primaries then solve it if it won't make it any worse. But could you then tell us, for having heard some material, heard the chairman at the time says he was not going to touch Iseyamo with a pole, but now is throwing his weight behind him. How do you reconcile that?
The national chairman of the party is not the one throwing Iseyamo up for this election. It's clear political mischief when people attribute the swelling popularity and grassroots capacity for governization by Iseyamo to mean that he's having the support of the national chairman. That is not correct. Is there Yamu at this point in time, is answering the call of the people. The people are the one who are saying that is there Yamu, you have paid your price. We have seen your political pronunciamento. You have displayed consistency. You have displayed integrity. You have displayed capacity. It is time for you to test the political ideology. You have been perfecting the political atmospheric suite. So Isayamo is riding on his own crest, and he's not riding on the crest of the national chairman of the party. It's just political mischief, for those who are saying to opine.
All right, Honorable Patrick Obayagbo, former member of the House of Reps and former Chief of Staff to Governor Adams Oshiomhole at the time. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts this morning. Well, we will be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, we've got Mr. Anthony Ojezwa. Interestingly, he's a lawyer, but sometimes politicians can confuse us as to the party chairmanship in the state. Now, it goes back and forth, but we've got him on the line this morning, so he's going to speak to us. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. So, this matter that is going back and forth about the governorship tickets, APC governorship tickets in the state. Yes, it's been announced that Mr. Isayamo has gotten the ticket by the party, having the chairman's support. And the thing now is, what does this then mean for the governor?
Well, first of all, let me quickly clear, it is not true that Isayamo got the ticket. Isayamo is not even a member of our party. And the party chairman have said so. He himself has admitted that he did not register at the ward as required by the constitution of the party.
About the waiver that is said to have been granted him by the NWC?
The NWC cannot grant him waiver on a defective process. The constitution is very clear on how to obtain waiver. There are conditions which must be met. He hasn't met them. So they shouldn't even, you are correct. The national chairman is supporting him. Yes, but he's not a member of our party because the national chairman has a problem obeying the rules of the party. We have a constitution that guides us. He wants to act as a commander-in-chief, and it cannot work.
But concerning the primaries now, we already know the process.
Point that he is ready to break all the rules of the party. This has been his hallmark since he became chairman. We have lost so many seats. Governorship. We lost Zamfara. We lost Bayelsa. We have lost so many. We couldn't even contest Taraba. We couldn't contest Rivers. Because the national chairman has a problem obeying rules and even obeying court orders.
So, can you tell us, because we've seen how the primaries are usually conducted. The party says, look, it's the NWC headed by the party chairman will be the one to supervise what happens. Does the governor stand a chance if the party chairman decides to go against him?
But they will do so according to the guidelines and the regulations established by the National Executive Committee, which is an organ of the party superior to the NWC. Now, the NEC met in 2018 and took a decision that both direct and indirect are allowed by the constitution of the party, and that every state will decide which mode they will prefer according to their peculiarities. In Edo State, we have met. We took a decision, and we communicated same to him. Even before the purported meeting of the NWC, this man had already gone ahead to inform other people that this thing was going to be direct on his own.
Okay, now
he cannot do that.
So at the moment,
it's not a replacement for the working committee. Neither does he have the powers to usurp the powers of the National Executive Committee.
Okay,
Nobody has to tell him that.
What would you then tell those who what they see is that the coast is not clear for the governor to go through, because if it were, why would they be going to seek having a meeting alongside some other APC governors in Lagos with the party leader, and then having to have a meeting with the president? Because they thought, look, if it was clear for him second time, he would have just gone smoothly without all of these other meetings.
Alhaji Tinubu is the national leader of the party. There is nothing wrong at all if everybody goes to him. In any case, everybody goes to him. The president is the leader of the party. There is nothing wrong. A governor wants to contest the election, and he goes to his leader to get his prayers and blessings. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong. But it doesn't change the rules.
Okay, now what do you say to about this issue around direct or indirect primaries? On the one hand, the party is saying something. On the other hand, it will seem like the governor is saying something different. On where do you stand on this? Should it be direct or indirect primaries?
It appears you have not been listening to me. The National Executive Committee of the party is the organ of the party that has the power to decide on who does what.
But I'm asking you, sir, I'm asking you, if you were to make...
I'm taking that decision.
Just one moment, sir. Just one moment.
Executive to decide which mode they would prefer. Those state executives have met with other critical stakeholders, and we have decided on indirect. And that is the mode the National Working Committee is obliged to use. Anything other than that will jeopardize the process itself.
But have you considered, in your consideration, did you factor in the peculiarity of COVID-19?
And to say what?
Did you factor in, while the meetings were going on to make this choice, did you factor in the peculiarity of the coronavirus disease rampage in the whole world?
It was especially the COVID-19 that we consider. That first of all, it would be easier to manage 3,400 people than to go and manage over 500,000 members. And in the process, endanger the lives of other citizens who may not even be members of the party. So we can contain delegates in one venue that is large enough to accommodate them, and then create an atmosphere that will ensure social distancing, mask wearing, screening, and the sanitizers and so on. But if you now say you want to do it in 192 locations, thousands of people gathering in one location, that will, of course, endanger the lives of our party members, simply because you want to pick one person to be a governor. So if he did not have an agenda, why should it bother him? Why can he not? Can he do his job and do my job? As national chairman, he should allow the state to function. The president has even said this several times, that they must obey and respect the organs of the party. The people who drafted that constitution were not foolish when they created world executives, local government executives, state executives, zonal executives, and even national executives. But the national chairman behaves as if he's just a commander in a battalion. We are not a military system. We cannot allow that. The rule of law must prevail, and it will be so.
Now, during the course of this controversy, I've heard members of your party, voice concern, saying they don't want the party to lose this state. And they refer to where this has happened in other states over the past few months, especially when it comes to elections and even the aftermath at the tribunal. And the question also that they bring up is, there's really a possibility that the PDP might be the biggest gainer in all this. Is that a concern that you have also?
I am deeply concerned, and I am very saddened that the man who has the responsibility to ensure safety for our party is himself the very danger that is posed against our party. It is so unfortunate. Oshomole was a great beneficiary of those people's goodwill. He has wasted all of it, and it's such a pity. I am very pained I regret every step I took to ensure him emerging as national chairman. If I regretted anything in my life, this is one of them.
Now, given this concern that you have and these regrets that you're expressing, is there anything you think can be done to pretty much correct things so that things don't get worse and your concerns, your fears are not eventually fulfilled?
You see, Oshomole has exposed himself as being interested in the outcome of this contest. He can no longer be an arbiter. He cannot be an umpire and a contestant at the same time. If Oshomole should excuse himself from this process, or the leadership of the party should make him do so, you will see peace. Because all we ask is that we follow our rules. We obey them as specified in the constitution of the party. He has serially abused that processes. And we cannot continue like that. Now, his own personal interest must give way to the collective interest of the party. That is our position.
Just on a final note, now, in the event that this does not go the way of Governor Obaseki, is the PDP an option?
Well, that is not a decision that I will have to take on my own. I think that everybody will have to sit down and take a decision. This is not the first time we are experiencing this kind of anomaly in Edo State. If you recall, we had an issue like this in 2003, and that was what led to PDP losing Edo State. There was no other party in Edo until we started suffering from the abuses of our leadership. Today, Oshomole, who fought the godfathers in Edo State, is now worse than the worst godfather that we have ever experienced in the annals of our history. We cannot accept it. We cannot accept it. And I have said it several times, Edo State is not a colony of anybody or entity. We are a state, for God's sake.
Very, very quickly before you go, just to quickly follow up on Kaude's question. If, as at this time, it is not a decision, is the PDP an option in consideration?
In politics, every option is open to a politician, so long as it's a collective decision.
All right then, Mr. Anthony Jesua, we do appreciate your talking to us this morning.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys.
All right then. Well, back in a moment, everyone. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So just a quick one. Olalekan Hakeem sends in a tweet, and it says, I think our medical personnel should derive some of the means of settling scores with government whenever they are loggerheads. They shouldn't just use strike. Strike should not be the outright solution. Well, you may understand some of maybe where he's coming from is if you look at the list of the demands from the NERD, where they talked about security agencies harassing professionals, including doctors, you'd have thought since NMA said the police authorities had reached out to them and they had given them the word, they were going to keep their word. So based on that, they shelved the strike. So why does it still feature as one of the recent demands of a 14-day ultimatum handed over by the NERD to the federal government as a result of the strike? So
perhaps that's just one of course, that's just one of the things that the whole thing is about. But that about the welfare of the staff, of medical personnel. On this program, over and over again, we have talked about the need to provide them with all the things that they need to fight this war. Not just them, but as well as the police. It took a while before even the security agencies themselves got, things as simple as face masks. They were endangered, all the way. So I think that's one of the things that we should give us all concern. If we're going to win this war, then our soldiers have to be well kitted.
While we're focusing on winning the COVID-19 war, we just listened to politicians who are focused on winning, the election in Edo State especially. Now take a look at this tweet from Cookie Inspector saying that how will direct or indirect primaries keep people safe during COVID-19? And maybe for this, Twitter user, maybe we should go electronic for, primaries, especially in light of COVID-19. So for her, it's not even about direct or indirect. It's none of them. Let's go E, maybe.
Oh, well, we'll have to check whether or not that's in line with the law. But check out this one from Dr. Anthony Uday, talking about the same last topic. He says, the brawl between the All Progressives Congress National Party Chairman Adams Oshiomhole and the Governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, is still raunchy. Imagine the primary is a few weeks away, and the one party had alleged the other party of sponsoring his attack. No doubt, if there isn't enough security on ground, there will be a bloodbath at the scenes of the primary on that scheduled day. If Adams and Obaseki continue to cross swords, they will pave the way for the opposition parties to feast on their misfortune and clinch the governorship stool. I think that will be a good lesson for the two men who aren't ready to reconcile for the progress and victory of the party in the forthcoming elections. I've seen this one before in the third, the botched Third Republic, where in Lagos, aspirant Agbala Jobi and Dapo Sarumi were at loggerheads. Their quarrel gave way for Michael Tedola to be governor.
What does Marco think of this?
I have absolutely no opinion on the politics in Edo State. I mean, we'll wait to see how matters eventually play out there. Some people might argue, though, that that's one of the reasons why Pastor Eze-Iyamu is in the APC, that they've tried to get one of the strongest henchmen that the PDP could present. But we have the PDP chairman on our program, and he said, no, we have a dozen eligible people to be governor of Edo State. However, if the governor wishes to defect to our party, we're willing to accept him. So I think that it's going to be a matter of wait and see how matters eventually progress. But I think it's very instructive to, notice the last words there of Dr. Anthony Uday, who says he's never seen a house divided against itself standing. And I think that's something that the APC in Edo State must note. Nonetheless, I would ask the political actors to please take into cognizance matters that directly affect the lives of the people. Right now, we have a health crisis, and we also have the matter of rape on the hands of the police command in Edo State. So we're hoping that, while they're also politicking, they would also continue to pay attention to the matters that directly affect the lives of the people, even as they progress towards the polls in Edo State. Gentlemen.
Yeah, so there you go. I thought you were going to say you saw it in the First Republic as well. Well, that's the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain.
I'm Kayode Okikere.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
And I'm Maupe Ogunyuso. Thank you so much for watching.